Computer hardware. Computer hardware includes the physical parts of a computer, such as a case, central processing unit (CPU), monitor, keyboard, computer data storage, graphics card, sound card, speakers, and motherboard. By contrast, the software is the set of instructions that can be stored and run by hardware. Hardware is so termed because it is hard or rigid with respect to changes, whereas software is soft because it is easy to change. Hardware is typically directed by the software to execute any command or instruction. A combination of hardware and software forms a usable computing system, although other systems exist with only hardware. Personal computer. Basic hardware components of a modern personal computer, including a monitor, a motherboard, a CPU, a RAM, 2 expansion cards, a power supply, an optical disk drive, a hard disk drive, a keyboard, and a mouse. Inside a custom-built computer, power supply at the bottom has its own cooling fan. The personal computer, also known as the PC, is one of the most common types of computer due to its versatility and relatively low price. Most personal computers possess a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, and a computer case. The computer case encloses and holds all of the necessary hardware required to store and process data on the computer. The motherboard ensures that all other inner computer hardware communicates with each other. The CPU executes instructions for running computer programs. RAM is responsible for the temporary storage of data while the computer operates. Laptops are designed for portability and are generally very similar to PCs, although they may use lower power or reduced size components, thus lower performance for a given price point. Due to their portability, all units of computer hardware in a laptop are integrated within the laptop's computer case. The monitor is found in the upper cover of the laptop, and it and the laptop itself can be secured by closing the cover. Instead of a mouse, laptops usually may have a trackpad attached below the inbuilt keyboard. The computer case encloses and holds most of the components of the system. It provides mechanical support and protection for internal elements such as the motherboard, disk drives, and power supplies, and controls and directs the flow of cooling air over internal components. The case is also part of the system to control electromagnetic interference radiated by the computer and protects internal parts from electrostatic discharge. Large tower cases provide extra internal space for multiple disk drives or other peripherals and usually stand on the floor, while desktop cases provide less expansion room. All-in-one style designs include a video display built into the same case. Portable and laptop computers require cases that provide impact protection for the unit. Current development in laptop computers is a detachable keyboard, which allows the system to be configured as a touchscreen tablet. A power supply unit (PSU) converts alternating current AC electric power to low-voltage direct current DC power for the internal components of the computer. Laptops are capable of running from a built-in battery, normally for a period of hours. The PSU typically uses a switched-mode power supply (SMPS) with power MOSFETs, power metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistors, used in the converters and regulator circuits of the SMPS. The motherboard is the main component of a computer. It is a board with integrated circuitry that connects the other parts of the computer, including the CPU, the RAM, the disk drives (CD, DVD), hard disk, or any others, as well as any peripherals connected via the ports or the expansion slots. The integrated circuit (IC) chips in a computer typically contain billions of tiny metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistors (MOSFETs). The CPU, Central Processing Unit, which performs most of the calculations which enable a computer to function, and is referred to as the brain of the computer, which gets a hold of program instruction from random access memory (RAM), interprets and processes it and then send it back to computer result so that the relevant components can carry out the instructions. The CPU is a microprocessor, which is fabricated on a metal oxide semiconductor (MOS) integrated circuit (IC) chip. It is usually cooled by a heat sink and fan, or water cooling system. Most newer CPUs include an on-die graphics processing unit (GPU). The clock speed of CPU governs how fast it executes instructions and is measured in GHz. Typical values lie between 1 GHz and 5 GHz. Many modern computers have the option to overclock the CPU, which enhances performance at the expense of greater thermal output and thus a need for improved cooling. The chipset, which includes the North Bridge, mediates communication between the CPU and the other components of the system, including main memory, as well as South Bridge, which is connected to the North Bridge, and supports auxiliary interfaces and buses, and, finally, a Super I/O chip, connected through the South Bridge, which supports the slowest and most legacy components like serial ports, hardware monitoring, and fan control. Random access memory (RAM), which stores the code and data that are being actively accessed by the CPU. For example, when a web browser is opened on the computer, it takes up memory. This is stored in the RAM until the web browser is closed. It is typically a type of dynamic RAM (DRAM), such as synchronous DRAM (SDRAM), where MOS memory chips store data on memory cells consisting of MOSFETs and MOS capacitors. RAM usually comes on dual inline memory modules (DIMMs) in the sizes of 2 GB, 4 GB, and 8 GB, but can be much larger. Read-only memory (ROM), which stores the BIOS that runs when the computer is powered on or otherwise begins execution, a process known as bootstrapping, or booting up. The ROM is typically a non-volatile BIOS memory chip, which stores data on floating-gate MOSFET memory cells. The BIOS basic input-output system includes boot firmware and power management firmware. Newer motherboards use Unified Extensible Firmware Interface (UEFI) instead of BIOS. Buses that connect the CPU to various internal components and to expand cards for graphics and sound. The CMOS complementary MOS battery, which powers the CMOS memory for date and time in the BIOS chip. This battery is generally a watch battery. The video card, also known as the graphics card, which processes computer graphics. More powerful graphics cards are better suited to handle strenuous tasks, such as playing intensive video games or running computer graphics software. A video card contains a graphics processing unit (GPU) and video memory, typically a type of SDRAM, both fabricated on MOS integrated circuit (MOSIC) chips. Power MOSFETs make up the voltage regulator module (VRM), which controls how much voltage other hardware components receive. An expansion card in computing is a printed circuit board that can be inserted into an expansion slot of a computer motherboard or backplane to add functionality to a computer system via the expansion bus. Expansion cards can be used to obtain or expand on features not offered by the motherboard. A storage device is any computing hardware and digital media that is used for storing, porting, and extracting data files and objects. It can hold and store information both temporarily and permanently and can be internal or external to a computer, server, or any similar computing device. Data storage is a core function and fundamental component of computers. Fixed media data is stored by a computer using a variety of media. Hard disk drives (HDDs) are found in virtually all older computers, due to their high capacity and low cost, but solid-state drives (SSDs) are faster and more power efficient, although currently more expensive than hard drives in terms of dollar per gigabyte, so are often found in personal computers built post-2007. SSDs use flash memory, which stores data on MOS memory chips consisting of floating-gate MOSFET memory cells. Some systems may use a disk array controller for greater performance or reliability. Removable media to transfer data between computers, an external flash memory device such as a memory card or USB flash drive, or optical disk such as a CD-ROM, DVD-ROM, or BD-ROM may be used. Their usefulness depends on being readable by other systems. The majority of machines have an optical disk drive (ODD), and virtually all have at least one universal serial bus (USB) port. Input and output devices are typically housed externally to the main computer chassis. Input devices allow the user to enter information into the system, or control its operation. Most personal computers have a mouse and keyboard, but laptop systems typically use a touchpad instead of a mouse. Other input devices include webcams, microphones, joysticks, and image scanners. Output devices are designed around the senses of human beings. For example, monitors display text that can be read, speakers produce the sound that can be heard. Such devices could include printers, speakers, monitors, or a braille embosser. Please subscribe, share, like video, comment and click bell icon for upcoming videos.